This is Pound Foolish by Jay Wilburn. David screamed all the way up the hall to his mother Maggie's room. It was blood-curdling, as usual, and Maggie hoped, not for the first time, that the neighbors would sleep through it and not call the cops. No cops had been called since the kid's father had left for good, and that's how Maggie liked it. All right. She had time to switch on her lamp on the side table and sat up as little David burst through the door. She had her arms out, and he barreled into them. The edge of her mattress only absorbed part of the impact. As her eyes adjusted to the soft light, she checked him for real injuries. She didn't expect to find any, but there was always a part of her that knew the first time she decided he was faking and needed to be ignored, he'd really have a life-threatening something going on. That was her kind of luck any time she let her guard down, and Maggie never let herself forget that. He blubbered through his tears, and she let him go on for a while. It quickly became clear that he was winding up tonight and not down. Maggie took his little head in both her hands by his warm cheeks and gently forced his head away from her right boob. She used her thumbs to wipe the most recent tears from under eyes. I gotta change that, I'm sorry. From under his eyes. I was going to say that works fine, but I don't think it does. This tended to calm him at least a little and gave a signal that it was time to chill out and explain his current terrors and sorrows as best he could. She took the next couple seconds of his hitching breath to check the clock. A few minutes before midnight. This was going to be a night. This was going to be a night that she could still catch up on her sleep, or it was going to be a very, very long night with many repeated interruptions. There was really no in-between whenever David started up this early. Come on, honey, tell me what it is so we can take care of it together. This set him off again instead of calming him down. The only words she could make out were no and not going back in there. So this was going to be a long night. She took him firmly by the shoulders this time. He shook in her grasp, but she didn't shake him. Maybe that was a fine line, but she damn well knew which side of it she was on. Still, he needed to get it together because they had school and she had work in 6 hours, counting prep time. Stop it right now. There, tell me what's wrong. We both need our sleep, and we're doing that in our own beds. So tell me now what's wrong, or get over it and go back. To that, David shook his head hard from side to side as he pulled away from her hands, but not toward her open door. What is it, David? Say it. The clown is back. She did her best not to roll her eyes at her frightened son, but she failed. Which clown is that? He had a few such imaginary visitors over the stretch of his short years. The same one, Allie's clown. He's back. From in the closet. I can hear them laughing through the wall. She's probably just talking in her sleep, honey. That it happens. I saw him. Maggie paused at that, not because she believed Allie really did have a magic clown coming out of her closet from time to time, but because David was so set in his declaration tonight. Let's go take a look, and then I'll rub your back a little before you go back to... I'm not going back in there, David declared. I'll sleep in one of the closets. It's not her closet, but I'm not going back there. This was new. Not the fear of Allie's imaginary clown friend, but this level of terror was new. Okay, David, but I'm going to check on her. So if you don't want to come with me, you will be in here alone. That flat response gave Maggie pause as well. She was sure that would work to get his feet moving, but instead of coming to her side, he backed up to the wall beside her lamp and stared past her at the door. Maggie started to say, David? She stared into his wide eyes a moment and then turned away, abandoning the effort. As she entered the dark hallway with the shallow splatter of light from the Bluebird nightlight between the bathroom and the kids' rooms, David piped up, Close the door behind you. She did not, and he didn't move from his spot against her wall to do it himself. Then she heard the laughter. It was high, shrill, and tittery. It was definitely Allie, about 5 years older than David and halfway done with middle school. She had to be asleep. None of that slowed down Maggie's heart. Maybe David had a point, but she wasn't about to start letting him sleep in her bed now. She was dead sure it would never end if she allowed it even once. As she continued on, the sleepy mutters followed the laughing behind her daughter's door. With her hand on the knob, a man's voice came muffled, and she froze again. It wasn't terribly deep, but that wasn't Allie unless she was affecting in some manner that Maggie had never heard before. She probably needed to cut David some slack tonight with those noises. Then there was definitely two voices, laughing over one another behind the door. Maggie slung it open and turned on the light. Allie was sitting up in her bed with her back to the wall, and let out a little cry as she covered her eyes with her fists against the harsh introduction of full light. It was that damn clown that had all of Maggie's attention, though. His face was indeed painted in crease white, along with cracked shapes of blue and red, with some black outlines. There might have been other colors too, but her eyes were adjusting to the hard light as well. He gave her a wide, painted smile that made her weak down the center of her body. He wasn't really painted up like the Joker or that nightmare clown from the Stephen King movies, but he certainly exuded aspects of all those types of terrifying characters. There was something else too, a thing none of those cartoon fantasies could match. This man in clown makeup in her daughter's room at midnight was real. All the silly movie terror that Hollywood could invent did not match the horror of seeing a real man violating a place where your child slept, with his patches of human skin showing through where sweat or fingers might have smeared makeup away from his face. It was terrifying in a John Wayne Gacy sort of reality shock. She felt a certainty that she was going to be hurt and maybe die here tonight. Likely her children would follow, but Maggie's muscles tightened into murderous springs as she prepared to do all she could to stop him from going past her to do any more harm. She would gouge out his eyes. She would bite into his greasy painted throat. Maggie was seconds or less from injuring him in every way possible, with no interest in protecting her own life in the process. The clown, wearing a funny black hat and holding a shiny black cane, rose into the air almost to the ceiling as he folded his legs into a seated position in mid-air under him. That took all the coiled danger out of Maggie in an instant. He held out the white-gloved hand, not holding the cane, and said, "I saw it in your eyes, and I respect it deeply, but that won't be necessary tonight." Allie gave out a little laugh, a giggle that was younger than her years. "This is Pound Foolish, Mom. He came for another visit." Another? That word terrified her. Maggie backed into a dresser as her knees tried to give out on her. Trophies from activities Allie had abandoned long ago rattled against each other as the dresser bore Maggie's sagging weight. "That's not entirely true," Pound Foolish said as he floated down from the ceiling with his legs still folded. "Allie called me to make a little wish." "I want you to leave my house," Maggie said barely above a whisper. Pound Foolish continued speaking as if Maggie had said nothing at all. "I'm not some sort of genie or wish granter by trade, but I've been known to see a thing through from time to time. Get out of her room," Maggie yelled as she stood back up fully on legs that supported her again, and then screamed at the floating clown. "Get away from her." Both her children spoke at once from opposite sides of the house. David called out, "Mommy, Mommy, are you okay?" From the sound of his voice, he had moved from her room out into the hallway again. What levels of courage that must have taken for him to do. At the same time, Allie spoke more quietly. "Mom, he's a friend. It's fine." Pound Foolish floated down to Allie's bed and almost lighted next to her on the rumpled sheets. Maggie charged forward and put both her fists into his upper chest before he could land. She felt his collarbones under her knuckles like a real man might have. As he propelled backward and weightless in the air, she smelled an earthy musk of makeup and sweat. Pound Foolish said "wee," like it was great fun as he flipped over, bouncing off a wall, leaving a white streak on one of Allie's posters of someone from YouTube famous for opening boxes or reacting to other videos, and landed on his feet in the center of the room. "Mom," Allie scolded. Maggie stepped between her daughter and the clown, which was exactly what she wanted to be, as long as he was still here, magic or not. Since I've already changed something anyway, I'm going to change this, which was exactly where she wanted to be, because it is a location. What works, but it's a little more clunky. All right, her daughter's closet hung open, and several boxes and clothes strung out from the opening across the room. Some empty hangers still swung on the bar as others scattered out out with the clothes. The light was on in there, and it flickered as Maggie stared into the space. That's where he came from, she thought, her mind stuck on the image of him sneaking into the house and crouching in there waiting for everyone to go to sleep. She wasn't yet at the point of accepting that her daughter's closet could be some sort of portal passage for this flying being to travel. As she darted her head to spy David cowering in the hall, Pound Foolish gave out a loud, rippling fart as his weight settled into his oversized shoes on the bedroom carpet. Maggie glanced at Allie behind her in time to see her daughter cover her mouth to stifle another childish giggle. Pound Foolish lifted his hat off of a wide bald patch that was also greased over white, and he bowed as if that were quite a performance. Maggie brought up both her tight fists in front of her. "I'll see this thing through for you, Allie, as you have wished." "Leave her alone. Leave," Maggie demanded. He swept toward the door, and Maggie took a step toward him. He gave a low laugh that seemed to carry humor and none at all at the same time. "You're a tiger, Maggie, a motherfucking tiger. Leave." "I am, dear, I am." "David, get back," Maggie yelled as she followed behind the clown. But David stood his ground at the edge of the turn where Pound Foolish would need to go in order to leave if in fact he was using doors like an ordinary human and not closet portals. Light from the bluebird spilled over her son's skin in sinister ways. "Thank you," Allie called from her bed. "Your wish is my suggestion. It's always nice to see you," he said as he paused beside David. David growled, "Get away from my mother and sister." "Good man," Pound Foolish said as he obeyed and made his way to the front door. David grabbed his mother's side in a hug that squeezed painfully as she watched the clowns retreating back. He wasn't gone yet. "What did you wish?" Maggie heard herself say. The clown laughed as he opened the door and stepped out into the chilly night without closing it back behind him. David let go of her and moved toward the front door. Maybe he intended to close it behind the clown, but she grabbed her son's shoulder before he could go to do it. "Allie, what did you wish? What is he going to do?" Her daughter rolled over in her fully lit room and pulled up her sheets. "Don't worry about it, Mom. It's none of your business." Now that sounded age appropriate, but Maggie wouldn't accept it. Not tonight, not after seeing this nightmare clown was real. "Allie, tell me." The girl gave no answer, but David said, "It's Vanessa. She wished him on Vanessa." Allie shot bolt upright in her bed and cried, "You little tattletale." I think it's tattletale. No, I'm going to leave it. I need to look that up because I actually used it in the first story I wrote, so I need to fix it one way or the other. With all the adrenaline-soaked shock of the night, it took Maggie a few seconds to process what she had heard. Vanessa was a kid who lived across the street and down a few houses. She was one grade higher than Allie and a bit of a mean girl bully, even though they had been somewhat friends years ago. Maggie didn't care for Vanessa's parents almost as much as Allie now loathed Vanessa. "What did you send that clown to do?" Maggie demanded. Allie rolled her eyes and started to lay back down. "No, you tell me right now. I swear you will regret it your whole life if you don't answer now, little girl." Allie froze up and stared at her mother with wide eyes. Maggie half expected David to tell her the rest, but Allie came forth with a voice younger than her age. It was just, she's so mean to me. What did you tell that thing to do to Vanessa? Tell me right now." Small voice again to go with Allie's shrinking posture. "I just wished for him to take care of her." "What does that mean?" her mother demanded. Allie gave hound dog eyes, but no answer. Maggie persisted. "What does it mean?" David clutched his mother again even harder. "I think he's going to kill her, Mom." Maggie moved toward the front door, where the chill had invaded deep into the house. "Mom, no, don't go. Stay here with us. Please don't go out there." Maggie had to pry her son's arms off her and then shoved him backward a little. Allie called from her bed, "Mom." Maggie ran the rest of the way out of the house. "You two stay inside and stay together." This time she closed the door. Pound Foolish must have been strolling because he was still outside Vanessa's family's front door as Maggie ran diagonal through the street. But that didn't last long, as one more kick from an oversized shoe Well, good thing I reread this because I don't have all the typos fixed. But such is life. An oversized shoe blasted the door inward in 3 pieces, away from the deadbolt and hinges. Screams drifted out from that open doorway as Maggie charged across the lawn inside. Now, she wished the neighbors would wake up to call the police. It wasn't really that kind of neighborhood, though. They were more the kind that would come out to watch as the police cleaned up the mess later. Maggie followed the screams, turning on lights as she went. She had no idea where the girl's room was, nor what she could do about it when she found it. She stopped in the doorway of the master bedroom as Pound Foolish pinned Vanessa's father up against a broad broken patch in the drywall behind his back. A lamp had fallen to the floor and its shade had rolled away into a corner. Severe light underlit the pair in unnerving glare from the bare bulb. Other clutter spread around the room, but Maggie didn't know what the place had looked like before her and the clown arrived. The man on the wall was the one crying and screaming. Pound Foolish used the tip of his black cane to wipe the tears out from under the grown man's eyes as the other gloved hand held still. No, that's backwards. I need to say still held. This isn't much of a reading. I'm getting into more editing. But people who read it later won't know that. As the other gloved hand still held the large man off his feet and firm against the wall. Shh, the clown hissed. Vanessa's father went silent. The clown said, "That's better, and this will all be taken care of soon." Maggie stepped forward to do something. She wasn't sure what exactly, but something needed to be done. "What did you do to the girl?" Pound Foolish glanced over his shoulder at her. The man against the wall showed his teeth and tried to throw a few punches. He knocked off the clown's hat and smeared a couple spots down to human-colored skin, but otherwise the blows had no effect. Through a broad smile, Pound Foolish addressed her. "Look at you, Tiger. What did you do to her? I'm taking care of her as your little wisher requested. You're a monster. The world is full of them, in the shadows, under our noses, sleeping under our own roofs, ignored by strangers we call neighbors." The clown turned back on the man and drove his white forehead into the man's face over and over. The wall crumbled as the man was hammered deeper into it. White paint, pink insulation, and bright red blood covered the father's face. The nose twisted, the eyes closed up, the loose teeth stuck to the ruined paint on Pound Foolish's head. The pounding continued, like the clown was using his own skull as a sledge or a wrecking ball. "What's happening? Why is this happening?" Maggie whirled around to see Vanessa in sweatpants and an old t-shirt that was too big for her. I like that. That's good, Armand. You took my emote and smashed the head down. That's awesome. It's like a tribute to the story itself. I appreciate that. So Maggie whirled around to see Vanessa in sweatpants and an old t-shirt that was too big for her. Maggie held out her arms to the unharmed girl, not knowing what else to do. Vanessa came to her in a rush and held her as tight as David had. Maggie turned the girl away from the violence. "Where's your mother?" "I don't know. She didn't come home. Sometimes she does that." Maggie turned to see the clown staring at her again as he still held up the crying pulp that used to be this girl's father. "He's a hitter," Pound Foolish said. "Very brave when the target is too small to fight back. Many guys like him are, as I'm sure you remember." "What are you doing?" she growled at him. "I'm taking care of her just like the wish called for. I'm seeing a thing through. Sometimes there is only one way to convince a monster that his reign of terror has ended. Only one way to get him to stop passing on his mean streak like a psychic infection. Every giant eventually runs afoul of his giant killer." "Let him go," Maggie said. "Just stop this." Pound Foolish frowned, and Maggie hated that more than his madman smile. Take it from a monster who knows, Tiger. This one has to go. He has to go all the way down. I'm taking this one with me when I return to other places." As if on cue, in her peripheral, the closet door to this bedroom swung the rest of the way open with a crash. A couple slats broke out as the door rebounded. Clothes and hangers blew out across the room like leaves on a storm to join the rest of the clutter. Red light glowed murder bright from the depths of that shallow closet. Then voices, whispers, giggles carried out from that space and whatever lay beyond it on that devilish light. It never made... I never want to see you again, Maggie said. I'm no genie, Pound Foolish told her over the moans of the man with the ruined face and the giggles of whatever demons lived beyond this world inside the closet. I'm not about the business of wish-granting as a rule. I will see a thing through when a thing needs doing, though. The clown released the man's body and let him crumple to the floor, beaded with spattered blood. The clown levitated an inch or three off the ruined carpet, but then settled back down with gravity, as if the floating were an unintended reflex. Pound Foolish took up his hat and settled it back on his head, covering the loose teeth still stuck to his brow. He gave another short, rumbling fart, but no one laughed this time, unless you counted the disembodied voices in the glowing closet. Maggie expected that to be it, and she started to release the girl, but then the clown lifted his cane over his head and went to work again. The black cane whistled through the air, and each meaty impact came with the crack of bones. I don't want to be here anymore, Vanessa cried into Maggie's chest. Maggie walked her down the hall toward the missing front door and away from the bloody bedroom. Pound Foolish laughed high, shrill, and tittery in a voice that sounded too much like Allie's. The demon choir from the closet harmonized with this murderous creature beating Vanessa's father to death and maybe taking him away to some other place beyond closet walls. Vanessa walked with Maggie across the street toward her house, willingly enough. Maggie started to wonder how far away they would have to get before that laughter would die out. The door was locked, and Maggie beat on it, calling for her children to let her inside. The locks worked from the other side, and then the unseen person struggled to get the knob turned and open. She knew it was David before he revealed himself. Maggie swept Vanessa in with her and took the door from her son to lock it back for whatever good that would do. Allie no longer sat on her bed as Maggie brought Vanessa and David into the diminishing mess of her daughter's room. A streak of white paint still marred one of Allie's posters. It swooshed down in a pale slash under the unboxer's chin. Her daughter was finishing up hanging her clothes back in the closet. Maggie swallowed a couple times. Someone is killing Vanessa's father. Vanessa covered her face with both hands and dropped to the floor beside Allie's bed. That was the wrong thing to say in front of this girl, Maggie knew, but she needed her daughter to know where this night had led. Allie clutched the last couple items of hanging clothes against her body. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Maggie stopped herself. She was going to ask, are you? But she had already set Vanessa to crying. Allie, I need to call the police. Will Vanessa be safe here? Just the three of you. Will the three of you be safe here? Maggie glanced at the white streak at the closet and back to her daughter. Allie swallowed and nodded. Nothing else will happen here. Nothing like this ever again, I promise. Maggie hesitated to leave the room. She needed to make the call and bring the authorities, even if she could tell none of the true story. Noises, screams, a broken door, violence, and she brought the daughter of the victim back here to call the police. That had to be enough, because no other details of the night would ever make sense. What had Vanessa seen? What would she tell? Would they all have the same story? What would be left to find once the police arrived? Sirens rose in the distance, but Maggie went to call anyway, as she wondered what she and the children would make of the world after all this. As she picked up the phone, her son and daughter settled in on both sides of Vanessa, and all three held each other as they cried for their own reasons. Maggie also wondered what was to be done with her own daughter that had somehow summoned all this.